everyone, welcome back to my channel, Offer Accepted. I'm Candace Fontes, your local trusted realtor here in Newburyport, and today I have a friend, colleague joining me, Caitlin Cimitaro, and we are going to be discussing the new changes with commissions. Stay tuned. So Caitlin, welcome to my channel, Offer Accepted. Very glad to have you here with me today.
Happy to be here, thank you.
Excellent. And today we're going to talk about a very hot topic. It's a little controversial, but some of the changes going on with commissions, with our clients out there, sellers and buyers both, are having to deal with a lot of changes with the commission structure. And we're going to kind of dive into that today.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
There's so many new things to learn and understand and figure out as we go through this journey.
That's right. So let's start with what the previous structure was,
Sure.
right? So the previous structure was that it was very common to see 5% being paid to the seller's agent, and that broker, that seller's broker, would then pay out the buyer's agent. So it was one flat fee, and it was up to the seller's agent to divide that up to the buyer's agent. So if there was no buyer's agent, then the seller's agent could keep that entire commission themselves, and they would be considered dual agent. So now it appears that it's less likely that that's going to happen now, and all these things are predetermined in the background before a buyer even comes to look at the house. So we have to sit down with our buyers and have a very detailed conversation with them about the good, the bad, the ugly, right? What could happen, what might happen, and all of those scenarios, and prepare them for that. And then with our sellers, we have to sit down and discuss what are they willing to do on their end. Do they want to continue covering that buyer agency compensation or not? Because it's no longer going all to the seller's agent.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you made a good point I think it comes down to all preparation, and speaking to your buyer clients as well as speaking to your seller clients and creating a plan and being prepared, especially when you're working as a buyer's agent, preparing your buyer to what to expect, or, some of the, I don't want to say roadblocks, but
They could be roadblocks.
They very well could be, and the options, and that's the thing. We have options and we have strategy, and we can figure it out. Where everybody's happy, the deal will go through, and they'll sell, they'll buy, and it'll be good. Very smooth process.
Yes. So I do feel like in some cases now we're seeing listings where they're not offering any buyer agency compensation at all, and that really was not the case in the past. So now that we're seeing that, we have to really have that detailed conversation with the buyers. Like, what does this mean? And I don't know about you, but I've seen some buyers really freeze up and get turned off by that property.
Especially if they've done this process before.
Yes.
If this is their second purchase, third purchase, they're like, wait a minute.
Yes.
Why now?
Yes.
Why didn't I have to do it then? And I'm buying $1 million home. I'm putting all this money down. Now I have to pay additional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what does that look like? How does that feel? And how do we conquer this together?
Yes. And they cannot, as of right now, they cannot finance that additional compensation to their agents. So it kind of becomes logistics, right? So they're tapping into their down payment, and if they go below the 20%, then they have to pay PMI, right? So it stands to reason that if you're going to be making an offer, let's just say you said $1 million home, so we'll just say $1 million home, right?
Sounds
good. I think it's best to always find a way to bake that into the offer. So they do have that line item in the offer where you can put down the commission that you're requesting for the buyer's agency, and write that in there and see what you can negotiate on that end if they're not offering it already.
Right, and sometimes we don't know, because when we look at MLS, there'll be a section that will say whether or not a buyer's compensation is being offered. And sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, and you have to make that phone call, to say, hey, are you offering buyer's agency commission? That way you can plan and prepare.
It's interesting though. So in New Hampshire, I'm licensed in New Hampshire, and they will not allow any mention of compensation whatsoever in MLS. And it's my understanding that the goal was to take it out of all the MLSs. However, in Massachusetts, it's still technically allowed, But I think a lot of us agents are a little afraid to, because you're technically going against the rules that NAR set forth. Am I right? I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I think in Massachusetts, it comes down to the brokerage making that choice and decision on if they, because I see some that will say either it'll be blank, which means it's a possibility of buyer's agent commission being paid or not, or it's there. And if it's not, you just make that phone call.
And then there's that also that other box that they can check that says compensation's offered but not listed in MLS.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
I knew that there was a third. I was like, I'm missing something, but that's a third. So, as I don't know, we all have systems as realtors, right? When you make that first phone call and it's what your seller's looking for in an offer, price is typically number one, terms are another. Home inspection, all these questions. And now we just have to slide in that question of, are you offering buyer's agency compensation? If so, what is it? And then plan.
So you add it to the list of questions, right?
And I see, in my experience, since this changed, what was it, like late August, early?
Last August, yes. August
of 24.
Like 17,
I would say 90% of the homes that my buyers were A, going to make an offer in, or B, made an offer in, have offered some sort of compensation, whether it's 1% or 2%. I have seen a few where it's, put it into the offer, and you kind of just take it for what it is and move forward with your best foot forward.
And part of this too, which is a little confusing, a little hard to wrap your head around, is so homes are still being priced using comps, because that's the best way to come up with an asking price for a home, what you think the value is going to be of the home. So you're using comps, and the homes that have sold that you're comparing your home to have oftentimes baked that, I keep saying baked in that 2% buyer agency compensation into the asking price. So if you're expecting that same price, it stands to reason that they should still offer that compensation. And if they're not, right,
you
then
take a certain percentage off.
As the buyer's agent, I would encourage, my folks to, let's reconsider this. Let's say, okay, if we're going to give you that price, then we do want this covered. So it's not coming out of their pocket. And that's based on the comps around them. Right. So it just adds another level of complexity.
It's like a scientific equation.
It is.
Like carry the one, you get rid of this, it's there. It's how do you figure out as a list agent, we can go back and forth with the nuances of either buyer's agent or the list agent, but as a list agent, you got to figure that out.
Yes.
Are you as a seller going to pay a buyer's agent commission? What is that? And okay, now I have to do my pricing that way. So to establish it immediately.
Yes.
It's always an interesting conversation to have.
It is, and there's a lot of coaching that goes into all of this to our selling clients, where we need to prepare them for, okay, well, if you're not offering that compensation, you may get lower offers because they now need to cover that. So they're doing the math in their head, right? And their agents are helping them with that strategy and kind of coming up with it. So I think that you'll get stronger, higher offers if you're being courteous and covering that as part of that price.
Yeah. And I think it's a conversation you have to, as a realtor, get in front of immediately, with both buyers and sellers, because if you're representing a buyer that is their first time home buyers and they don't have 20% to put down, and what if they come to a home that they fall in love with and want to make an offer, but they're not offering.
And then are we the ones standing in the way of them getting that offer accepted?
I would hope not, because I think we have the knowledge and the experience to be able to negotiate.
Exactly.
And I think that's why it's so important to work with a buyer's agency representative, because of the tricks and tools and strategies that we've, learned over the years and making successful offers.
Yes, and if they feel like they want to go directly to the seller, right? Because again, in the past, if there was no buyer's agent, that seller's agent could potentially make that full commission. And now that's not the case, because their commission is already predetermined before they even hit the market. So if a buyer goes direct to them, they're still getting what they negotiated with their seller in the beginning, right? So at this point now, if you're a buyer and you can't afford to pay your buyer's agent out of pocket, you think you're going to go straight to the seller and it's going to help them, but in it really makes it much more complicated, because now you don't have anybody representing you. You don't have anybody that's going to give you the discretion that you need. Yes, all of that stuff.
The old car that we...
Exactly, yes, that we've come to know and love. So, they don't have that. And then the seller's agent is, they're not motivated to be dual agent because they're not getting anything else from that. So really, it really has created this whole... cycle of what's best, what's not, right? And I just keep coming back to the fact that if the seller was offering that compensation, it just makes it so much easier.
Makes it so much
right?
easier.
Yeah.
It's part of the price. It's, I find this to be like, if you kind of close your eyes and imagine this whole process, the new, buyer's agent's compensation, and you don't have to pay, or you do, and it's hidden. It's like walking into like a smoky room. Like, the room exists, there's furniture in the room, but you're like this, you're trying to wave the smoke away and try to understand it, try to see clarity, right? Yeah. It's like that,
That's a very good way of putting it.
That's how I vision it. When you close your eyes, that's how I think about it. It's smoky. It's not clear and concise, and it's just, you kind of take one offer at a time, or one house at a time, and walk through each offer, because not every offer is going to be the same. Not every listing is going to be the same. One agent might be offering 1.5%, and are you going to ask that your buyer comes up and makes that 2% for you?
And that's the case. In some cases, yes. Right? In some cases, we have to do that. And then, right, so this is all supposed to, it's all intended to give folks more clarity, right? It's supposed to be more clear. Yes, and I feel like, to your point, like with the smoke, it has not cleared anything up. In fact, it's raised a lot more questions. But also, too, there's some ethical weirdness going on out there too. I came across an agent, I will never name names, but I came across an agent, I know I told you this already, but I want to repeat it, that
that's right.
We went to go do a showing, and I could not make it. This was a crazy snowstorm, and I had to drive in the best of conditions. It was probably like a good 30 to 40 minute drive for me to get to this showing, and now it's a snowstorm. And my clients want to go look at this house, and I need them to see every house they can possibly see, anything that's interesting to them. So I called the agent and I said, hey, I'm really in a bind, and I cannot physically get there, but I would really like my folks to see the house. Is there any chance that you could help me out and do the showing? And this agent said, would you give me, I think it was 0.25% of the commission? And I was floored.
It's mind-boggling to me to even come up with that idea, to open up a home that you are representing.
Yes, because it's in their best interest to show the home to every single buyer.
And that is why they were hired.
Right, yes. And so those poor selling clients, right, don't know that this gentleman is doing this and having these kind of conversations. So if I had said no, then he would not have shown the house. And then he's not representing his clients well, because he's not getting everybody into the house that wants to see the house. So there's that. But then on top of it, he had already had his listing papers signed with his clients, right?
He defined what that commission structure was going to look like.
That's right. So he already had his structure in place, and now is saying that he wanted to take some of mine. Now, mind you, I already had buyer paperwork signed with my clients as well for my percentage. So now he's asking us to tamper with that after it's already been signed by each individual party, and he didn't confront or consult, I should say, with his selling clients first. He just said this right off the cuff on the phone. There was no time for him to say, well, let me check, let me come up with something, and then come back.
Right.
So,
which tells me he's done this before.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yep.
And it felt slimy. It felt very slimy. So anyway, I will tell you that under the pressure, I said, okay. And I was thinking about it in my head, and I didn't know how I was going to make it work, but I figured I was going to call my broker and really, discuss all the details afterwards. But I did not want my clients to not see the house. That was number one. Number one was that they need to see the house.
Because you're doing the right thing by your clients.
Yes.
Yes.
So they saw the house. They ended up not putting in an offer. It wasn't the right house for them anyway, so I did not have to deal with that agent ever again. But man, so it sticks with me. And I have heard of other agents even in Newburyport, where the same thing is happening, and I've had these kind of stories come up from other agents where they're saying now if you're not physically with the buyer when they go to the house, that they're now asking for part of the buyer's agency compensation.
At a private showing or open house as well?
I'm trying to think.
Open house is open.
I know, an open house is open.
Yeah.
That would be asinine, right?
Yeah.
So I want to say that this other agent told me about her circumstances. It must have been a private showing.
Has to have been. That's a very small percentage of.
Yeah.
You were in an unusual circumstance where it was way out of your, we'll call it territory, in a snowstorm. But I would say 99.999% of the time, we are walking through the houses with our clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or get coverage, right? I call a colleague.
Exactly.
Say, hey, Caitlin.
Happy to do so.
Come on over and help me. Yeah. I mean, whatever you need to do. And then we could have our own little arrangement as to, like, if you're helping me, I could say, well, I don't exceed.
I want happier
I want all of it. No.
Buy me a coffee.
But yeah,
That's
like friendly arrangements or whatever, or I scratch your back, you scratch mine, that type of thing. But
yeah, that's how it should be done.
Yes, very friendly and collaborative, all of that. But I don't know, that really baffled me. So I feel like there's potential for some crazy mishaps with this new structure. Because of people like that who want to do that and want to try to take advantage. And then there is the potential for this to really create more fairness, right? And be more transparent. It's just, it's still so early.
It takes away a little bit of the transparency.
Yeah. Well, yes, the fact
because it's not listed.
Yeah.
I mean, somewhere it's written down on a contract and signed. But yeah, I mean, it's a simple question to ask, and you're providing a very simple answer as a listing agent. What are some conversations that you've had with your sellers as far as paying
compensation?
Yeah, I haven't had one that's pushed back. They've asked more questions about how we got here.
Yeah.
But I think the understanding is a very nice, clean, smooth transaction is going to happen when you're offering a commission to both buyer and seller.
Exactly. Yeah, I have not had pushback. So I present it to them as, same thing that I just said about the, when you're comparing your home to other homes, you can't compare it to that if you're gonna then ask them to pay an additional 2%. It's just not apples to apples. So once I mention that, they go, oh yeah, and it starts to make sense. And then I talk about, well, your offers are gonna be stronger and they're gonna be backed by an agent. They're more likely to close. Right? We don't want to leave room for error.
Right.
There's already weird things that can potentially come up. We want to try to eliminate that. So once I go through all of the ins and outs over it, it really just makes so much sense to offer it. And it does create, like you're saying, a much smoother transaction. And also think about, in the spirit of negotiating, right? Everybody wants to walk away feeling like they won. Right. Nobody wants to feel like they walked away being raked over the coals.
Right.
So the best way to have that happen in any negotiation is I give a little, you give a little, and we meet in the middle. Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
So I feel like starting out with that is really great because the buyers are more likely to maybe compromise on things. Like if you need a use and occupancy agreement or anything, they're more likely to say, yeah, sure, we can accommodate
more
that.
Flexible terms.
Yeah.
And sometimes terms win the offer.
Yes.
It's yes, of course, every seller wants the most for their home, and that's what we want to get for you. But sometimes it's being flexible on the close date, being whatever it is. Sometimes it comes down to the terms.
It could come down to a dining room table, right? I really want that dining room table.
It's incredible, but yeah, something as simple as that and things that you wouldn't think about are important.
Caitlin, this has been amazing chatting with you. Thank you for joining me here in the
course.
Newburyport office. I know you're usually in the Gloucester office over there, but I love seeing you here, love seeing your face and chatting about new things going on.
We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely.
This is one of many.
Yes, absolutely. And we covered a lot here. We talked about what the previous commissions were, what the new territory is now that we're sort of dealing with, and we could do a follow-up video maybe in a few months and talk about, some other things that we've come across as this has all progressed. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And for my viewers out there, if you like this video, please be sure to like it, subscribe to my channel, and share with your friends. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.